Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I am here today for another shelf spotlight. I am tired. I am not used to filming at the end of a 10-hour shift of nannying because I normally have a couple days off during the week. At least I have for the last 8 months, but now I'm working a new job, which is awesome. So I have 2 nanny families again, and I'm working now on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, which were normally when I would film. I'm very thankful for that, but it does mean that I now have to figure out a new routine for my week, which means coming home at the end of a long day and turning on some lights and getting ready to film. So that's what I'm doing here today. We have a shelf spotlight, and I admittedly didn't think of this idea on my own. I was reading the Modern Mrs. Darcy email newsletter thing that I get almost on a daily basis. I feel like it comes out all the time. But one of the topics that she talked about were books with home or house in the title, since we are still somewhat staying home as much as possible. And in 2020, we've been home a lot more than normal. It just feels like before this year is over, I want to do this as a shelf spotlight and just talk about books on my shelf that have the word house or home in the title. I have 8 books here that I've read already that have home or house in the title, and 2, 4, 6, 8, and 8 that I haven't yet read. So we'll start with the ones that I have read, and I'll just jump right in. The first one is Lion, A Long Way Home by Saru Brierley. This is the young reader edition, and so this is kind of the middle grade, early YA edition. This is a nonfiction memoir about Saru Brierley's experience. He was born in India, and as a young child, very young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, gets separated from his family and survives on his own in Calcutta and ends up eventually getting adopted by a family in Australia. They help him to remember, especially when he was young. They do a really good job of encouraging to remember as much as he can about his life before coming to them, and they wrote things down. And then when he got older, late teens, early 20s, I believe, he used Google Earth to try to find his birth family. This story was beautiful, and I bawled. I watched the movie first. I didn't know that he had written a book, so I watched the movie first, and it's stunning and heartbreaking and heartwarming and so cool how technology can be used in this way. Loved this book so much. A historical fiction that I loved is The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grissom. This book takes place at the turn of the century in Virginia on a plantation, and we follow a girl named Lavinia who was orphaned on a boat on her way over from Ireland and kind of adopted as an indentured servant almost by the plantation owner, and she's raised in the kitchen house by some of the slaves. So she finds herself as a white girl whose family is all black, and she finds herself torn between these two worlds. She doesn't really fit in with the slave culture and the slave families that she knows and loves so deeply, but she also doesn't fit in the big house with the other white people either. Such a fantastically told story, also infuriating at times, and made me cry again. I mean, most of these probably made me cry if they have home in the title, because yeah, it's just who I am. Another historical fiction is The Girl Who Came Home. This is by Hazel Gaynor, and this is a historical fiction about the Titanic. In this one, we follow 2 different timelines, but the main timeline is this girl and who, with many members of her village, all travel on the Titanic, and not all of them make it, obviously. There's also a 1982 timeline where we follow the great-granddaughter of the girl who survives the Titanic, and family secrets and historical fiction that's not World War II and not pre-Civil War South. Love that one. So good. The next is a Christian fiction. This is Randy Alcorn's Safely Home. This I read a long time ago, probably 15 years ago or so, but I do remember being so moved by this story about the underground church in China. This man has to go on a business trip to China, and he reconnects with his old college roommate who really had an impact on his life, and he stays in this village with his old roommate, and sees the underground church, and it impacts his faith and his life. And I remember having my eyes opened to how Christians have to survive in countries where being a Christian isn't really legal. And so this was a super interesting and harrowing read, and I really remember it making a huge impact on me back in the day. So I don't know how this would translate to a 2020 world, but I know that it was very impactful for me 15 years ago. Another historical fiction that I loved was Homegoing by Ya Jessie. This is almost a collection of short stories. In this one, we follow at the very beginning 2 sisters who never knew each other, but they share a father, and their roads divide greatly. They start in Ghana. They both are raised in Ghana. One of them ends up being captured and sold into slavery and comes over to America, and the other stays in Ghana. And then we follow generations of these 2 sisters down through this family tree. It actually has a family tree at the beginning, and I remember that being so helpful to kind of look back on. So yeah, I did flip back to that family tree quite a few times while reading this. But in each chapter we follow basically like the slave trade and slavery in America, into the civil rights movement, into like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all of these major people and players and characters, and Harlem, like the jazz renaissance, all of these elements of Black culture and history in America, but also what was going on in Africa during those equivalent time periods, and how that all played out and how it wove together towards the end. Like, it just was really so beautifully written, and it felt a little bit choppy because we don't get full stories of any of these people, but I liked how Jessie was able to pull me into each character within these shorter chapters, snippets, and I felt like it was almost like a history lesson, but it also was very interesting all along the way for me. So I really loved this one very much. I have 2 Anne of Green Gables ones. Not Anne of Green Gables, but we have one of the series, Anne's House of Dreams. I won't tell you too much about this one, but Anne is grown in this one and married and has children, and finally moves into the house that she kind of has always wanted for herself and her family. So that is, I forget what number this is, maybe 5 or 6 in the series. To be honest, I can't remember. Does it have the list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is book 5. And then we have House of Dreams. This is a middle grade biography of Ella Montgomery that I just read in September for my Kindred Spirit September. I was not wowed by this book. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm holding on to it because I still think it was so interesting to learn about Ella Montgomery's life. Oh, this is by Liz Rosenberg. I was very interested to learn about Ella Montgomery's life and what was happening in her life when she was writing some of the different books that she had written. She really, I just wanted to be her friend and help encourage her. She really struggled with depression and loneliness, and just really struggled with some stuff and had a hard life, some based on decisions that she made and some based on choices that she had no control over. So this was very eye-opening for me. I didn't love how it was written, and I didn't feel like it was really very appropriate. Not appropriate, but this is middle grade technically, but I couldn't see myself giving this to a middle grade reader. So I don't know, but it was very interesting at the same time. Then we have more of a mystery, kind of a thriller almost, and that is Lake House by Kate Morton. This is this is a suspenseful book about this family. In this book, a family kind of throws this yearly party at their lake house, and one year during the party, an infant child, a young child, was taken in to go for a nap or whatever, and the kid goes missing, and they never find him. No trace of him, no resolution to that situation. And so from how does that then affect the family and the people surrounding this situation? And this was so good. I love Kate Morton. I'm so thankful that I have a couple more of hers to read still on my shelves, but this is a little different from some of the historical fiction, more heartwarming, heartfelt books. This one is not really along those same lines. Speaking of Kate Morton, I also have The House at Riverton by Kate Morton, and this is also kind of a suspenseful mystery. She writes such good mysteries with in-depth character development. In this one, we follow mainly this woman named Grace. When she's young, she's really attached to the two sisters who live at the house at Riverton, Hannah and Emmeline. And when they are young, they are the only witnesses to a murder, I believe. Or no, a young poet shot himself, and the only witnesses were Hannah and Emmeline, and only they and Grace know the dark truth. Years later, in a future timeline almost, this young girl Grace is now elderly and living in a nursing home, and a director comes. He wants to make a movie, I believe, of the events that happened in 1924. So secrets come out, the truth might come out, and what really happened to this poet who shot himself. I love Kate Morton, and I'm really excited that I have another book of hers to read. So yeah, this has house in the title. Another house book that I just recently talked about is The House on Foster Hill by Jamie Jo Wright. This is a Christian fiction author who writes kind of thriller, ghosty type books, and I just hauled this in October. So this is a very new book on my shelves. And in this one, Kane, a young woman named Kane, her husband died 2 years earlier, and she doesn't believe it happened the way everybody's saying it is. She's trying to get them to investigate further into her husband's death, and nobody is listening to her complaints or ideas or suspicions. And then she purchases this old abandoned house in a small town where her grandparents lived or something, and there are some secrets and unusual occurrences at this house. And then we also have a dual timeline. So there's also a timeline of 100 years earlier where we do find out about this house on Foster Hill and what all went down and how does that now affect Kane's life in the present day timeline. So I'm really excited about this kind of creepier, suspenseful vibe on that one. I do have a middle grade with the word house in it. I have Winter House by Ben Gooderson. And I believe this is not actually about a house. I believe it's about a hotel. And this boy who lives in the hotel, orphan Elizabeth Summers, Aunt Purdy, and Uncle Burlap ship her off to the ominous Winter House Hotel owned by the peculiar Norbridge Falls. Upon arrival, Elizabeth quickly discovers that Winter House has many charms, most notably its massive library. This sounds wonderful. It's not long before she locates a magical book of puzzles that will unlock a mystery involving Norbridge and his sinister family. But as she uncovers the hotel's secrets, Elizabeth starts to realize that she is deeply connected to Winter House, as dangerous as that may prove to be. Oh, that sounds really good. Puzzles and a library and an old hotel and a creepy family. I should have read that last month. That sounds really good. I have two mysteries. Speaking of kind of spookier and mysteries, these ones are not really spooky, but two books in the Three Pines series by Louise Penny that I've not yet gotten to are The Long Way Home and Glass Houses. I don't know where these are in the list. I have a list of the whole series, but off the top of my head, I don't remember what numbers these are. I am on book 6 or 7 in the series, and there are 15, I think, now. So I have quite a ways to go still. I did make quite a good progress this year, but I know nothing about these except that Armand Gamache and his team of investigators will be solving a murder in both of them, I'm assuming. Hopefully they both take place in Three Pines, which is the setting of most of the books in the series. Let's see. This one definitely takes place in Three Pines. And this also takes place in Three Pines. So yay. Three Pines is like a not real village in Quebec, Canada, outside of Montreal. That just sounds like a lovely place to go, especially if you love winter. I don't love winter, so I'll visit in the summertime. I do have one historical kind of book. This is The House at Tyneford by Natasha Solomons. I have not read anything by her. This blurb at the top says, fans of Downton Abbey and Kate Morton's The Forgotten Garden will absolutely love The House at Tyneford by Kristen Hanna, who I also love. So this is like an upstairs downstairs type of thing, maybe like a wealthy family, but also the servants involved in the house, and also maybe some kind of family secrets with like the Forgotten Garden or a mysterious orphan who came out of nowhere, or I don't know. Takes place in 1938, and it's no longer safe to be a Jew in Vienna. So we also have a little bit of World War II starting there. So why haven't I read this yet? This sounds really good. I love all of those buzzwords that one had. I have a couple of books by this author as well. This is Billy Coffey, Steal Away Home. This book was sent to me by the Fiction Guild back when the Fiction Guild was sending out books. I haven't received any in a while. I don't think that program is really happening anymore. This revolves around a man named Owen who really has two loves in his life, baseball and his sweetheart, his girlfriend. And he has to decide, he has to make choices between the two of them, and one is going to save him from the other. And I think there's an angry father in the mix, and I'm not really sure much more about it than that, but I am hoping in 2021 to read some Billy Coffey, because I think I now have 3 of their books on my shelf, so I really need to read some of them. It's my goal in 2021 to at least read one of them. We shall see how that goes. But sports, that might be a good springtime read. I feel like baseball is a spring sport, right? And I finally, because it is nonfiction in November, I looked at my nonfiction shelf and I also found one there, which I didn't haul that long ago. This is At Home in the World by Tish Oxenreider. Tish hosts the podcast The Good List, which I love and I listen to pretty regularly. I don't catch all of them, but I really enjoy it. It's a nice, short and sweet podcast that just talks about good things that she's loving, and she gets calls in from other people and talks to other people as well about the good things in their life. I think she has a newsletter that goes out on Fridays that's just called The Good List. And in this book, Tish and her husband and their 3 children travel the world. I think they go for 4 continents. I don't know how long. An adventure across 4 continents with 3 kids, 1 husband, and 5 backpacks. Whoa, they just go backpacking around the globe. So that's pretty cool. 4 continents with a family of 5. And it just talks about finding home wherever you might be, and how they did that and what that adventure was like for them as a family. I really appreciate her voice and her heart in her podcast. So this is a nonfiction that I'm very eager to read, and I think that cover is stunning. So that's 16 books that have the word home or house. I know that I've read more than this because I looked up my Goodreads at first, and I have quite a few more that I've read, but I just don't own them. So either I listened to them through audiobook or borrowed them from the library. But let me see. Or I've gotten rid of them, since gotten rid of them because I don't keep all the books that I read. So here are the books. Oh, let's see. Let me move this. Dun, 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 dun. Ha, that'll do it. So here are the books that I have read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here are the books. Oh, that's a heavier one. Has some hardcovers. And here are the books I've not read. Have you read any of these? Do you have a favorite book that has the word house or home in it? Are you finding ways to love your house or home even more during this time? Guys, listen, I'm setting my Christmas tree up early. I was meant to do it over the weekend, but it was like 70 degrees outside. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I had to go outside and take a walk in the beautiful fall leaves instead, which is probably more appropriate, but it'll get up soon. I would love to hear from you in the comments below if you read any of these, if you love any of them, if you have other favorites with the word home or house in it, or anything else that you want to talk about. You guys know I love talking with you down in the comments. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you like it. That helps me so much. And subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends, shout me out, whatever you need to do. I'm so close to 5,000. I have a fun event planned for when I get to 5,000, so I would love for you to help me out to get there. It's coming so soon. I don't really make a big deal about subscriber count because it is what it is, but I love you guys and I love this community and I'm so thankful for you, and I will be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.